The summer before 8th grade, my sister and I hopped on a bus to go visit our uncle in New York City. He had a great week planned for us, and on the third day of the trip, his friend came to visit. His friend Seth was everything my 12-year-old heart beat for. He was a skater who played guitar. He had these sparkly blue eyes, and he built Jeeps from scratch, so he was to die for. As expected, he hardly noticed me. 10 years later, I'm 23 and commuting between DC and New York for this job at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, so I stay with my uncle on the nights that I'm in the city. One night, I walk into his Bronx apartment and see Seth sitting at the kitchen table. It's been years since I last saw him, but those preteen emotions rush back and I feel nervous and giddy just looking at him. But I play it cool and act totally nonchalant when my uncle invites me to have dinner with them. At dinner, I learn that Seth is a pescatarian, an avid red wine drinker, and that he races the vintage BMW that he drove up from DC this weekend. Seth is different from how I remember. I mean, he's no longer this mythical skater guy who lives in my memories. No, he's adventurous and mature and real. When we get back to the apartment, Seth and I stay up for hours, drinking wine and talking. As the weekend comes to a close, my uncle suggests that Seth give me a ride home back to DC, since that's where he lives too. And Seth agrees. He just throws in one disclaimer. His radio is broken, and it's a 5-hour drive back to DC. My palms sweat at the thought of being alone with him, but I gratefully accept the ride and mentally prepare myself with a pep talk. You are a cool girl, Taylor. You are mature. You got this. And just for safe measures, wear the jeans with the slits in the thighs. On the drive home, I use my small Bluetooth speaker and try my hardest to impress him with my eclectic music taste. A little Outkast, Tribe Called Quest, Tame Impala, you name it. Now, this could be my imagination or wishful thinking, but I'm pretty sure that in between head nods and the occasional, I like this one, he's checking me out, quickly stealing glances in my direction. But a few hours later, he drops me off at my mom's house and just drives away. When I get into the house, I tell my mom about the weekend and work and the ride home. She gives me a firm glare and says, Taylor, don't. He is too old for you. I laugh her off and think nothing of it. Is 17 years older too old? A few weeks later, when I'm back in New York for work, I confess to my uncle, I've had a massive crush on your friend for years. I know it's ridiculous, but I just have to get this off my chest. I hold my breath, expecting him to say that his friend is off limits or that he's way too old for me. But instead, he says, go for it. He's a great guy. Then he hands me a shirt that Seth left behind and says, why don't you deliver this to him next time you're back in DC? That way, you have an excuse to see him again. Getting my uncle's stamp of approval in this way was really exciting. Months pass, however, and the shirt sits untouched on the room of my floor. I want to go, I do, but I stop myself because I'm in a committed relationship, and making time to see another guy to run an errand shouldn't be a priority, right? Also, seeing Seth alone, no uncle, no safety buffer, just feels like trouble. But my uncle nudges and nudges a little harder until I finally give in and contact Seth. I'm standing outside his house just as it starts to rain. The bad weather feels like an omen, like the universe is saying, girl, you know you shouldn't be here. But I am. So I knock on the door, no answer. My heart races with anticipation. I knock on the door a second time, and I feel relieved, thinking maybe I can just leave. He's not home. I'll leave the shirt in the bushes. I knock on the door a third time, and right as I turn to leave, the door bursts open, and there's Seth saying, sorry for the wait. Do you want to come in? I just opened a beer if you want to join me for one. I take a deep breath, go in the house, hand him the shirt. Over the course of the next couple of months, we're seeing each other as much as possible, just making an intentional effort to get to know one another. We aren't hooking up or dating or anything, but I still keep these hangouts a secret from my boyfriend and my friends and most of my family. Okay. We spend time just talking and enjoying one another's company. He comes over and helps me garden. We meet up for shrimp tacos and early morning croissants at the farmer's market. The more we hang out, the more I feel like I'm missing something in my current relationship. Seth is just special. He's simultaneously rigid and set in his routines, but still incredibly open to new possibilities and new ways of thinking. He's literally the type of person who pulls over on the side of the road just to help people experiencing car troubles to build up what he calls his car karma, which I did not know was a thing. As my feelings for Seth grow, I know I have to break it off with my boyfriend. For my friends and family, the transition from boyfriend number one to Seth was jarring. Are you okay? They asked. Are these your daddy issues manifesting, Tailor? This is just a phase, right? My mother's reaction was pretty similar, especially considering her and Seth are only a few years apart in age. I didn't want to disappoint my mom, and I knew my friends were just looking out for me, so I had to wonder if they were right. Am I crazy? Is this just a phase? I asked myself these questions and so many others. About a year into us getting acquainted, not dating, acquainted, Seth and I went away to Deep Creek Lake together, where we tripped on magical mushrooms in this park with winding forests and waterfalls. Halfway through the trip, Seth finds this huge rock, precariously perched on top of this really tiny rock, and says, "I want to climb that." Now, this rock was scary. It defied logic and gravity, and it was physically impossible for me to climb up. But Seth climbed up, he reached his arm down, and he said, "Just trust me, I got you." I hesitate. He looks down with those sparkly blue eyes and he asks, "Do you trust me?" I remember looking up and saying, "I trust you, but I'm still afraid." Nevertheless, he pulls me onto the rock. We peer out at waterfalls together, and before I know it, I just lose it, and I burst into tears. For over a year, I've been questioning my feelings for Seth. And this whole trip, I've been trying to figure out why I was holding back in this way. I mean, here was this guy. He made me feel safe. I did trust him. We had so much fun together. And here we were, sharing this space and this moment together with no one else around, and it just felt so right. I continue crying, just reflecting on who I am and who I want to be. For most of my life, I've been a doubter, a people pleaser, more concerned about how others perceive me than about what fills me up and brings me joy. On that day, on what I affectionately call self-love rock, I admitted to myself that I had made it. The person who I always wanted to be was here, sitting on this rock next to this amazing man who was everything I had ever wanted. And there was no one else around, and that didn't matter. That day, I unapologetically made Seth my boyfriend. And 4 years later, he's my fiance. And we continue to cultivate the love and the life that we want. Thank you.
All right.